My 9-year-old boy comes down, he's gone fishing with me the first time a couple of weeks ago, and he's here every time we come unload. And look, at the end of the day, he's got to have fish to fish for the future. And I'll say this, and I'll say that any industry member would say this: no one would ever try to catch fish that are unsustainable. It's just silly, because you want fish to be there for the future. This is our industry. You need to have sustainable fishing.
Australian fisheries are amongst the best managed in the world. This is because their sustainability is underpinned by sound stock assessments and harvest strategies. The quality of the stock assessments and management are continuously improving to ensure a sustainable and viable industry into the future. This process isn't just about scientists and managers. It relies heavily on contribution from fishermen. Without your input, they can't develop accurate stock assessments. The aim of this DVD is to help you understand how stock assessments and harvest strategies work. We also want to demonstrate just how important a fisherman's knowledge, information and participation is in the stock assessment and harvest strategy process. Ian Nucky is a fisheries scientist who's been working in stock assessment for over 20 years. With worldwide experience, Ian explains where Australia sits in terms of fisheries management.
Generally, Australia's fisheries are pretty well managed, with a few exceptions. We've done a lot of work over the last couple of decades bringing in harvest strategies and doing stock assessments to make sure that our fisheries are where we want them to be. That hasn't come without its level of pain. The industry's been through a lot of difficult times to get our fisheries to sustainable levels, but generally now they're where we want them, and the stocks that are in trouble are rebuilding.
We'll use practical information from 5 different case study fishermen and, as with all fishermen, their businesses rely on well-managed fisheries. So, let's meet our fishermen. Tony is a trawl fisherman in the Commonwealth trawl sector of the southern and eastern scalefish and shark fishery. Tony fishes out of Bermagui and Ulladulla. Like most of our case study fishermen, Tony's been involved in stock assessment meetings for years.
My family's been fishing on this coast for 75, 80 years. My father was born in Sydney and then started fishing here when he was 14 years of age, and I went fishing about 27 years ago and been doing it ever since. Boat's about 31 years old. It's a timber trawler, 70 foot long, and it's got 2 Caterpillar motors, 365 horsepower a side, got a hydraulic motor and a little genset. Well, our main catch would be tiger flathead. I reckon we'd catch 20% of our catch would be tiger flathead, and then obviously other species like silver trevally, ling, miradori is another species we catch a lot of. But our main species we catch is tiger flathead.
Moving south is Wayne, who fishes out of Lakes Entrance. Wayne's also in the Commonwealth trawl sector, but uses Danish seine gear to target tiger flathead and school whiting.
I've been fishing for approximately 40 years. I left school about a week after I turned 15 in Deer Park, and went to Mornington, started scallop fishing with Johnny Galot, well-known fisherman. Come from there to lakes scalloping for about 18 months and went Danish seining. Pretty much been Danish seining since. Yeah, this is the Nungurna. She was purposely built for Danish seining in 1982. She's rated with 195 horsepower Cummins. She's 60 foot long. Next time we do the motor up, we'll probably increase the rating on it, I'd say. Probably up another 50 horsepower if we can. We've just replaced the fish room with stainless. The old fish room that was in there was probably good fish room back in the 1980s. This town rock and rolls around fishing. When I first came to lakes, there was probably 140 boats fishing out of lakes with scallop boats and and shark boats and prawn boats, and there was even cray boats back in them days. Yeah, I think a lot of people in this town rely on fishing, and if it ever shut down, I don't know what would happen to lakes.
Down on the south coast is Frosty at Apollo Bay. He operates in the gill net, hook and trap sector of the southern and eastern scalefish and shark fishery, and also Victoria's rock lobster fishery. Frosty's main catch is gummy shark and southern rock lobster.
I've been in the industry since 1974, which is 37 years now. I got into it because it suited what I wanted to do in Apollo Bay. I was a pretty keen surfer, and fishing sort of fitted in well with the surfing lifestyle. My boat's a conventional wooden hull boat, 35 feet long or just over 10 metres. It was built in Apollo Bay in 1966 by the guy that I bought it off. It's got a 6-cylinder Ford diesel in it, which is quite overpowered for the boat, so it's very economical. We only run it at about 1800 revs, so it's not hard on the gear. We rebuilt the motor 3 years ago, and when we pulled it apart, didn't have just put standard bearings right through it. There was no wear at all after 20 years of work. Got 2 different hydraulic systems on the boat. One a low pressure system for driving the net winch, and a high pressure system for the pot hauler. We find that works better in that way. The high pressure is better with the pots because it's more controllable. You can actually stop it and the pots will stop, whereas the low pressure one's good on the nets because it's much easier to pull. Nets are all 6-inch, 20 mesh deep, and I work 2.1 kilometres. I work 50 pots. I have a licence for 54, but I only work 50. The shark mostly goes into the local domestic market, either through the local co-op or the Melbourne fish market, and the cray's all sold through the co-op. Probably 90% are exported to China, the other 10% will go into the domestic market.
Next we have Russell. He runs an auto long line vessel in the gill net, hook and trap sector and fishes throughout southeast Australia. His main catch is pink ling and blue-eye trevally.
I've been a fisherman for about 17 years now. Got into it for a friend. He was fishing with Muirs, and basically asked me if I wanted to do a trip. I was a short order cook at one point, and decided I needed a change, and yeah, went fishing and never looked back, basically. The boat is a specifically built auto line fishing boat, the only one that's been purpose built for auto lining in the country. It was built in 2004. It's called the Diana. It's after the owner's grandmother, and it's fully automatic long line. There's 15,000 hook system. It stretches over 21 kilometres from end to end, and everything on the boat is probably where you need it to be, like the bait room freezer, the fish room freezer, and how the ice machines and the engine room, everything's set up, basically built for hard work and comfort. Yeah, we normally start around about 1-2 in the morning because it takes a while for the gear to settle, down near the bottom. We probably set away. 1 or 2 o'clock, we probably put 5 or 6 lines of 1,500 hooks in. Quite often we parallel them, and I put them side by side about 0.2 of a nautical mile away, so that we're in the patch of fish, because you can often put them south or north or east or west of your other lines, and there'll be no fish there. Like I said, they're very sort of residential and on the hard lumps and so forth, so we try and target shoot with the gear. We put pressure floats and weights on the gear to create like a half moon effect with the gear on the bottom, so it comes up off the bottom because the blue eye come up off the bottom. So yeah, we don't use all our gear. Very, very rarely will we use all our 15,000 hooks. Very, very rare. You can actually fish quite smart with less gear but more targeted. Mostly catch blue eye trevally, a bit of harpurka and some pink ling. The 3 main species. You get a little bit of bycatching amongst that.
Our final case study fisherman is Dodgy, a charter boat skipper out of Portland. During autumn and winter, he's taking customers offshore game fishing to catch southern bluefin tuna.
I first started in the trawl industry over the back here, about 20 odd years ago. went up to the local TAFE and done me tickets, run into Phil Daffy who owns this, and that's how I sort of got into this. I've been doing this for a couple of seasons now. Yeah, it's a 10 metre cat, 600 horsepower, it's got twin 300s on it, holds 600 litres of fuel. Yeah, rides really good, yeah. It's comfortable, it's 6 tonne in weight, so sort of sits in there all right. It's nice and comfortable compared to lighter boats, you know. Now we'll be chasing bluefin tuna in the summertime, kingfish and snapper. In the tuna season alone, went through 80 clients last year. So far this year about 60. That's just the tuna season alone. So you probably double that for the rest of the year, you know. A lot of people come here, tens of thousands come here during the season. All need accommodation, fuel, you know, they all come down here and use all the local facilities. They spend a lot of money, of course, you know. Our town appreciates it, puts us on the map, you know.
So, that's our case study fishermen. And as you can see, they come from a variety of fisheries and use a range of different gear. In each of these fisheries, stocks are assessed using a similar process. In essence, this process relies on the collection of information by fishermen recording details of their catch and scientists measuring fish populations. Now, obviously scientists can't count all of the fish in a fishery, so instead they rely on computer models to estimate fish stocks. Computer models are used for a wide range of applications, not just fish stock assessments. For example, in weather forecasting, meteorologists gather a range of information including air pressure, sea temperatures, humidity and satellite imagery. This information is plugged into a computer model and the computer generates a weather forecast. In a similar way, stock assessment scientists collect information from the fishery and put that information into the computer model. The computer model then generates predictions about fish populations. Here's a diagram that illustrates how the stock assessment model works and represents a fish population over time. It's important to point out that unlike a weather forecast, our stock assessment models not only tell us what will happen in the future, but also what has happened in the past. The model predicts the fish population every year from when fishing started and up to 20 years into the future. So, let's have a brief look at the important information used to predict a fish population. Quite naturally, the population is either going up, down, or remaining unchanged. Now, just the same as humans, fish populations change, and this depends on the number of births and the number of deaths. Scientists call this recruitment and mortality. If we know how many fish we have to start with, how many are going to be recruited and how many die, we can work out how many will be there next year. That's the basis of a stock assessment model. The only difference is that just like commercial fishermen usually talk about their catch in weight rather than numbers, scientists also talk weight and not numbers. This is called biomass. Biomass refers to the weight of fish. So, for the purposes of this DVD, we'll use biomass from now on to talk about the size of fish populations. Now, like people, as fish grow older, they get heavier. So, to properly account for biomass, we need to add another component to our stock assessment diagram: growth. Because we're now talking about total weight of a stock rather than numbers, the rate at which fish grow is going to affect biomass change. So, our diagram now represents how a simple stock assessment model works. Using a model, we can predict how biomass changes based on recruitment, growth and mortality. These are the fundamental parts of a stock assessment model. Scientists call these parameters. Often the level of information required to fully understand each parameter isn't always available, so very simple assessments are used. However, to help explain the detail of stock assessments, the example used in this DVD will assume there is enough information available to estimate each parameter. Fisheries managers use the predictions provided by stock assessment to manage the fishery, guided by rules called a harvest strategy. The harvest strategy sets out the ways to work out how much fish can be sustainably caught, depending on the health of the fish stock. A good harvest strategy means that Tony, Wayne, Frosty, Russell and Dodgy will have sound industries and a good living into the future. This DVD is divided into different sections which look in more detail at the different components of stock assessments and harvest strategies. Throughout this DVD we'll use our diagram and relate the information back to our case study fisheries. So settle back, grab a coffee and enjoy the show.